aggregate. Central at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. Set.
거리름으로 آره. نمیاد جاکش، خب بیاد جاکش که برم سر کلاس. گاهیدی ما رو. شاید.
I love the kind of woman that will actually just kill me. You know, when I left the house today, I was thinking, damn, I really hope some hot chick paints my brains all over some fucking hallway. And here we are. I'm talking full-on watermelon in the thigh.
سلام بچه ها، صبحتون بخیر. امیدوارم که خوب باشید. نمیدونم که چرا بقیه هنوز به ما ملحق نشدن. 1-2 دقیقه دیگه هم صبر کنیم و دیگه مجبوریم که شروع کنیم. Okay, so we are going to talk very briefly about theme and then the lottery by Shirley Jackson. So we have repeated the term theme so many times that I'm quite sure you're already familiar with the meaning of it. But a theme is a kind of meaning that refers from the world of the story to the world of real life experiences, to the non-fiction world. So when we're talking about themes, we are talking about the most dominant connections between the fictional world and then the real life. Most of the stories that we read have got dominant themes, usually more than one. But not necessarily can we find themes in each and every story that we read. For example, imagine an adventure story or a horror story, a thriller. In many of these stories, the concentration is on the plot or the characterization, and therefore we cannot detect significant central themes in those stories necessarily meaningful in real life experiences. But in other stories, and more so in open-ended stories of the modern literature, you can find several themes based on the perspective through which you approach a particular story. You can come up with a number of different themes. And of course, we will not and cannot be unanimous when it comes to defining certain themes, because based on our background experiences, knowledge of the world, presuppositions, or different readings of the story, we might come up with different themes. So just like any other aspect of the story, like, for example, a plot or, let's say, some characterization, again, in good examples of literature, themes are not explicitly stated, and it is rare that you can find some particular lines in which the theme can be explicitly detected there. It is usually scattered throughout the story. So the author decides to not include or to develop a certain theme in the story, and uses different modes, different elements in the story in order to determine that particular theme. It can be the setting, characterization, dialogues, monologues, the atmosphere of the story, the ambience. Many different things can work as unifying elements in order to accentuate a particular theme. So that famous saying that authors do not explain, they show, is also true when it comes to thematic notions of a story. Another thing that is important is that when we talk about themes of a story, we need to come up with generalized statements or generalized ideology. So if something is true only to one particular character in a specific context, then that cannot be regarded as the theme of the story, because we need to have some sort of connection between what's in the story and the world outside. So, for example, if you've got a very peculiar character like Batman or Superman, of which certain things are true, but you cannot relate them to other people, then you cannot use them to talk about human condition. So generalization in ideology, in purpose, in condition is another factor that can help us come up with themes in a particular story. Have you got any questions regarding theme in literature? You're back. خب بریم سراغ لاتری. من یکی دو دقیقه سکوت میکنم، کامنت های شما رو میخونم. لطفا شما اول به من بگین حستون رو و بعد من شروع میکنم. فکر کنم پارسال بود که یک فیلمی هم ساخته شد، یه فیلم بایوگرافیکال در مورد شرلی جکسون. فکر هم میکنم که اسمش اصلا شرلی بود اگر اشتباه نکنم. حالا بعدا میتونید اون رو هم ببینید. فکر میکنم مثلا یه مقدار یادم رفته راستش رو بخواید، زمانی که شرلی جکسون داره سعی میکنه که لاتری رو بنویسه. خیلیاتون به تویست داستان اشاره کردید که خب به نظر میرسه که مهمترین قسمت داستان هم هستش. سال 1948 این داستان نوشته شده و وقتی که تو نیویورک چاپ شد تقریبا همه دیوانه شدن، یعنی یه سری خیلی عصبانی شدن. نیویورکر مواجه شد با سیری از نامه‌های فحش و انتقاد و ابراز نفرت و ابراز حیرت و همه این چیزها. حالا چه چیزی در مورد این داستان وجود داره که انقدر شوک برانگیزه؟ قبل از اینکه به اونجا برسیم یک چیزی رو به طور کلی در ادبیات یادتون باشه و بعد حالا میرسیم به این داستان بخصوص. در ادبیات زمانی که شما در مورد یک اتفاق هولناک، در مورد یک مصیبت، در مورد یک فاجعه به صورت خیلی کژوال صحبت بکنید، با یک فاصله، بدون اینکه خودتون رو اینوالو بکنید، با یک دیتچمنت، یه تکنیکیه که در واقع تاثیرگذاری اون فاجعه رو بیشتر میکنه. یعنی یکی از تکنیک های شوکه کردن خواننده توی ادبیات اینه که شما در مورد اتفاقهای ترسناک و مخوف با یک لحن دیتچد، ابجکتیو، با فاصله صحبت بکنید. و خب این دقیقا این تکنیکیه که شرلی جکسون توی این داستان استفاده کرده. So the twist, the unexpected ending is intensified through the detached narrative style, the objective narration of the story. It's as if through the narration, no emotional aspects are included in the narration or forced into the narration. Something else that adds to the shocking quality of the story is that everything happens in a very peaceful, calm atmosphere, and you see very normal, friendly, genteel people when the story begins. And then finding that sort of violence and cruelty and brutality in these very, very normal, familiar characters adds to the shocking nature of the story. And of course, you've got the setting, which is a sunny morning. Everything is tranquil, peaceful, beautiful, all promising a very smooth gathering, something very happy, as the name of the story suggests. And then the contrast between what you expect and what actually happens creates that sense of shock. There are many characters in the story. Each of them has got some contribution in the conveyance of the theme. Let's start with Tessie Hutchinson, which is the central character here. We know that she's a housewife and a mother. she, I put it in quotations, wins the lottery and is stoned to death by other villagers. When she arrives at the ceremony late, she says that I totally forgot what day today was. And this is a signifier that this is a certain day that happens annually, and everyone is aware of it and everyone awaits it. Something that needs to be remembered is that no one, not a single one of the villagers, states any sort of protest or objection against this ritual or this ceremony prior to the beginning of it. And even when Tessie tries to repeat or just to say that she believes it is not fair, it is only after she is the winner. So no one is concerned about the fairness or the characteristics of this lottery unless the winner is herself or himself. You don't see or hear any sort of objections. And of course, when she tries to object, you see that her husband tells her to shut up. He is actually the one who forcefully takes the piece of paper out of her hand and shows this to the other villagers. This story has got very strong notions of feminist literature and feminist reading as well, because it shows a patriarchal society with men as powerful authorities in it and women as voiceless followers. So because of this dominance of men, because of this silent, obedient following of women, because men are representative of the families, because of all the very small details in the story, feminist readings of the story is also very possible and very popular as well. And of course, we've got Bill Hutchinson. You see his control over Tessie. He represents the patriarchy prevailing in the village. Even when the winner is his wife, not only does he not protest, but also he forcefully wants this ritual to proceed. بچه چون ما شخصیت‌های زیادی توی این داستان داریم و خب شخصیت پردازی عجیب غریب این داستان نداره، یعنی شما هیچ کدوم از این شخصیت‌ها رو به صورت عمیق نمیشناسین purposefully، به خاطر که در واقع تم داستان مهمتره از شخصیت‌ها توی این داستان. پس هر کدوم از چیزایی که اینها میگن به طرز ماینری کنتریبیوت میکنه توی ایجاد همین تم اصلی. مثلا یه مستر ادمزی داریم اینجا که همونجوری خود مستر ادمز و میسیز ادمز یه رفرنسی دارن به این که یه روستای دیگه ای هست که they're thinking about giving up the ritual. اصلا چرا اینو داره میگه؟ به خاطر ریاکشن هایی که این جمله به وجود میاره. مثلا وقتی که این جمله شنیده میشه شما میبینید که اولد من وارنر میگه که pack of crazy fools و میگه که next thing you know they will go back to caves. There has always been a lottery. پس بنابراین این دو تا شخصیت مستر و میسیز ادمز احتمالاً اونجان که این ریاکشن رو شما ببینید که آدم ها در پایبندیشون commitment and adherence to rituals, they redefine concepts such as civilization. They are so religiously committed to the performance of this ritual that they cannot even imagine the abolishing of it. They believe it is vital to the survival of the village, and they are not prepared to give it a second thought. Because there has always been a lottery, there needs to be lottery forever. There's reason it was there, and we're not ready, prepared, and willing to rethink it based on the needs and contextual features of our present society. We blindly follow the rituals, and that is actually the function of rituals. This is how the story becomes a sort of harsh criticism to the blind following of rituals, whatever nature they might have, social, religious, political, whatever they are. Another theme that is important in this story is the dual nature of human beings, the existence of kindness and violence within us. One of the characters that reveals this duality of human nature very well is Mrs. Delacroix. When she's introduced to the story, you see her as the first person who talks to Tessie. She looks very friendly, very natural, very normal. But when Tessie becomes the winner and she protests, she says, "Be a good sport, Tessie." And then when it comes to picking up stones, we see that she grabs a stone so large and so heavy that it is even difficult for her to lift it up. So she very well suggests this duality, this binary in the existence of human beings. So you see this gentility, this friendliness, and then this savagery and brutality. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe the slightest positive aspect of humanity can be seen in Mrs. Dunbar. Mrs. Dunbar needs to draw for her family because her husband is at home with a broken leg. You see patriarchal notions here because I think it's Mr. Summers who asks her, yeah, don't you have an older son to do it? And she says no. She also accepts all the criteria of this patriarchal family and patriarchal system. But when it comes to the stoning, she picks up only small stones and then leaves the ritual. So the only slight compassion found in any of these characters can be detected in the character of Mrs. Dunbar. And of course, you've got Mr. Grave and Mr. Summers as the most important, let's say, and most powerful members of this village. There are the organizers of the ceremony. They both represent tradition and they both represent power. As I mentioned earlier, this story can be approached through different lenses and different schools of thought. So, for example, if you have a Marxist reading of the story, because Mr. Summers and then Mr. Graves represent money, power, authority, and patriarchy, then they can be representatives of capitalism. So you see that in many criticisms of this story based on Marxist ideologies. They all the time repeat and stress how important the ritual is to the survival of the community. They impose certain rituals of which no one can make sense, but they have the power to pull it through. And then we've got the very interesting character of Old Man Warner, who is the oldest member of the community. We learn that he has taken part in the ritual for 77 years. He is actually the person who reveals resistance to change. So rituals need to be there because they have always been there. He is representative of adherence to tradition, the unwillingness to change, the unwillingness to modify according to the modern time. This is how the story turns into a criticism of blind following of tradition, because this commitment to tradition takes away logic. It turns into a sort of religion that you do not find it possible to think or to look for deeper meanings or deeper explanations of phenomena. You need to do it because it is believed to be important. It is believed to be significant. Or helpful, or useful, or whatsoever. So, as I already mentioned, when it comes to finding themes in the story, we can come up with a number of different themes. But On first look and on first layer, we can all come up with violence in human nature. The very act of stoning is very violent and very brutal. And of course, I already mentioned that the contrast between the peaceful setting and the friendly atmosphere and this very brutal act that is performed heightens disgust and surprising readers so much. So this shows mass cruelty. This shows the evil in human beings and the possibility of evil in every human being. Remember that this village is not given a name. This story is not given a certain time. This shows that these people can be anyone and this city can be anywhere. So a more generalized understanding of the story is made possible through the unnamed village and the untimed setting. So you see villagers blindly following, creating a mass ritual and performing very brutal acts in deep contrast to what they normally are. Are they brutal the day after or even after the ceremony? Most probably not. They go back to their normal selves. They go back to being kind mothers, loving fathers, friendly neighbors. But evil is there. Violence is there. And of course, how can we talk about this story forgetting tradition, customs? Shirley Jackson uses a very important symbol in order to represent tradition, and that is the black box. The black box that we read is very, very old. Some suggest replacing it, but no one is willing to do so. And there's also a suggestion that the present box that is so old has itself been made up of remaining of the previous box. So because it is black, because it is very old, because it is not replaced, because it is still functioning, the black box becomes the central symbol of the story representing tradition. و خب بچه ها البته دوباره تکرار میکنم که خب به خاطر اینکه این داستان خیلی خوانش های فمینیستی داشته، اگر که ما توی خوانش فمینیستی حتما ما به victimization of women ارجاع بدیم، به خاطر اینکه تمام ساختار این جامعه نشون دهنده یک جامعه مرد سالاره. افرادی که در قدرت و در مسند تصمیم گیری هستن مردان قدرتمند هستن، صدای زنها اصلا شنیده نمیشه. اینو تو شخصیت های مختلفی توی این داستان میتونید ببینید و بنابراین توی خوانش های اون شکلی جندر رولز هم در واقع یک مسئله خیلی مهم و قابل توجه میشه. و من دوباره در پایان به ستینگ اشاره میکنم، ستینگی که بسیار مهمه توی احساس شوکی که در شما به وجود میاد. اون روز آفتابی زیبای پر از آرامش که توش آدم ها به هم میرسن، سمال تاک دارن، غیبت میکنن، حال همون میپرسن، انگار که جمع شدن برای یک دور همی خیلی صلح‌آمیز هوای خوب، آدمهای خوب، فضای خوب و بعد کانترستش با اتفاق ترسناک و مخوفی که قرار بیفته. اشاره کنم به بچه هایی که اونها در جمع کردن سنگ مشارکت دارن. افراد یک جامعه که درش خشونت، سنت، تعصب ریشه دار شده، در واقع حساسیت زدایی شده ازشون. بنابراین بچه های این جامعه مستر وارنر های فردا هستن، مستر گریف های فردا هستن، کسی هاچینسون های فردا هستن و این مشارکتشون نشون میده که از نظر اونها هم already این اتفاقی که در جریان اتفاق خیلی ترسناک و عجیب غریبی نیست. خب حالا به تایتلش هم دقت کنیم که دیگه تایتلش، ستینگش، همه اینها irony of situation هم دارن دیگه. البته اون رو هم که دیگه احتیاجی به توضیح بیشتر نیست. بچه داستان سال 1948 نوشته شده، تقریبا بعد از جنگ جهانی دوم و خب بنابراین خیلی خوانش‌های سیاسی اجتماعی زیادی ازش میشه کرد. میتونه یک اشاره به هولوکاست باشه، میتونه اشاره به بمب اتم باشه، میتونه اشاره به همه‌گیر شدن کمونیسم باشه در جهان. و با این نوشن بچه‌ها بعدها ادبیات آثار دیگه رو هم به خودش دید. مثلا اگر که شما The Handmaid's Tale مارگارت اتوود رو خونده باشین، دوباره نوع دیگه‌ای از این ارتجاع رو توی جامعه میتونید ببینید، یا حالا فالو آپ اون کتاب که اسمش هست The Testaments اگر خونده باشید. به هر حال داستان مهمیه، تقریبا توی همه انثولوژی ها شما لاتر رو پیدا میکنید. فکر میکنم یه فیلم کوتاهی هم ازش ساخته شده اگر اشتباه نکنم. بفرمایید، سوال، نظر، انتقاد، پیشنهاد. الهام، مطمئن نیستم متوجه میشم که چی میگی. شاید که دوست داشت. من سکوت کردم چون میدونم که دارید تایپ میکنید، منتظرم بخونم. برش میکنم. حالا تا الهام توضیح بده که چی گفته که من متوجه نشدم. ما جلسه آینده یک داستان کوتاه، نچندان کوتاه، از سوزن گاسپل می‌خونیم به اسم A Jury of Her Peers و یک داستان از سلطان داستان کوتاه آقای آنتون چخوف می‌خونیم به اسم The Bet. داری در مورد داستان حرف میزنی یا داری در مورد ایدئولوژی نویسنده حرف میزنی؟ اینو اول مشخص کن. ببین الهام، توی داستان هیچ رفرنسی به تو نمیده که این یه ریلیجیس سرمونیه ها. این در واقع بیشتر تاکید میکنه که یه ریچواله، ولی ریلیجن یه ریچواله، ولی هیچ نوشن مذهبی تو نمیبینی در واقع. البته که اینها برای good fortune and good luck and survival و همه چیزا یه چیزی قربانی میکنن، ولی یادت باشه این تو آیین‌های سرخپوستی هم هست و سرخپوستا آدم‌های ریلیجیسی تعریف نمیشن. بنابراین این بیشتر یک ریچوال سنتیه، ولی در پرانتز مذهب خودش یک ریچوال قلمداد میشه. نمیدونم تونستم توضیح بدم حرفمو؟ خیلی خوب، من با شما کاری ندارم. اگر سوالی یا مطلبی نیست ازتون خداحافظی میکنم. هفته دیگه میبینمتون. خسته نباشید. خدا نگهدار.